Hello and a happy Sunday. My name is Zade Eldomiaty, and this is the 11th episode of the Wise Lemon podcast. I want to thank everybody for tuning in once again to another episode this week. And as far as the topics I wanted to cover this week, I was thinking about a couple of things, and one of the things I wanted to bring up initially was appearance and perception and the value of it in our society today. The interesting thing is it's actually been shown that people who are naturally perceived to be more attractive, whatever that may be, are perceived to be smarter, kinder, more generous, and overall have a warmer initial reception than others, based on nothing except for physical characteristics. This isn't your virtues. These aren't your values. This is simply your face, how you present yourself in the world. And I think it can be taken in a couple different ways, but the reason why I'm bringing it up here, because in the way that things are currently, so much of people's day-to-day lives may be consumed with their appearance. How do I look? How am I perceived? What is this? What is that? It's an exhausting way to live. It's the way we're currently doing it. I don't think you've ever seen people take as many pictures as they do now, look in the mirror as much as they do now. Is that a good thing? Hey, I'm not here to say. These are simply observations that I've noticed, but I do know that something in my personal experience, which has been helpful for me, is the value that could play in your life. Looking the part. You know what I mean? There's a great quote that I love from Deion Sanders. Those football fans out there will know who I'm talking about, who said, "You look good, you feel good, you play good, and if you play good, they pay good." I used to be in recruiting. I used to help people with interviews, and beforehand, that is one of the things that I would tell people, because you'd be surprised if you look the part. Because not only if you show up well-dressed, it doesn't just tell this person, hey, I take you seriously. It's telling that person I take myself seriously, and by extension, what I do seriously. And I think it goes a long way. And first impressions mean a whole lot. You can't get a first impression back, and, regardless of how it makes you feel, it's, that initial physical appearance and how you choose to present yourself in this world really does mean a whole lot. Humans are emotional creatures. Not everything is purely logical and rational and reasonable. Sometimes you run off those emotions, and for better or for worse, right? It's like, hey, if I show the part, if I come up wearing a suit to work, I find myself approaching the day a whole lot differently than if I were to maybe wear something a little bit more casual, right? So there's something about the appearance, how you choose to present yourself, that is incredibly important, because that's how you move throughout the world. It's how people choose to see you, and ultimately there is a ripple effect that comes from that. Something worth thinking about. Something else that I wanted to discuss today was time. I think I kind of touched on it a couple episodes back, but I'm 26 now. I was born on March 19th, 2000 at actually 7:17 a.m. It was interesting. This year I had my birthday, and I had my birth certificate with me, and I looked at it really for the first time, like critically, like, oh, let's take a look at this. And that was the moment of the day that I was born, 7:17 a.m. in the morning. And I'm not going to lie to you, not much changed as a result of knowing that information, but I do look at 7:17 a little bit differently. A little bit more gratitude, a little bit more appreciation. I think about like the moment you popped into the world, where, you were really introduced to Earth, so to speak. I mean, that's, for me, there's something very interesting about that. But the reason why I bring up time and age and thinking about these things as I've gotten older, and I feel like this is a shared experience, is it goes faster. Is that fair? I don't think so, but I don't make the rules. And something that's very important when you consider the fact that it feels like time is increasingly quickening, that you gotta take those moments. You gotta slow down You gotta smell the roses. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll die on this hill, because for me, that would make a huge impact. That'd make a big difference. Because, I felt like I was maybe 18 not too long ago. Then you go to college, you graduate, 22, you start working for a few years. Next thing you know, you pick your head up. It's been 4 years since you graduated. There is a incredible movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, a Chicago classic, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Close the first episode with a quote from there, and I'm going to repeat it because that quote is very special to me, and I think it's incredibly relevant to what I'm saying in the times of today. And you got to slow down. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around every once in a while, you might miss it. And first-hand experience, I'll put my hand up. I feel like there's a couple days that I missed, You're trying to sometimes grow up too fast. I remember when I was younger, I was very late in hitting my growth spurt. And I always kind of wanted to be older. I had an older brother. I was trying to be as independent as possible, as soon as possible. And I always felt like I was trying to grow up, maybe a little too fast. And as I've noticed it now, and as I've seen things clearer than I did before, I realized that maybe that was a mistake. Not a regret, but just something, hey, moving forward, maybe let's challenge these assumptions. Let's think about this, because you keep rushing to get old, eventually you're going to yearn to be young again. And time doesn't work like that. I think, it gives you what it gives you in the moment, not what you necessarily want, but what you need. And that is a par for the course, and the journey of aging is how you deal with that. In the beginning, you're a baby, you're incredibly reliant on the people around you, and you're incredibly vulnerable. They give you time, resources, love, energy, and attention. You get older, you become more independent, you become stronger, you become smarter, you become able to do things on your own, and then towards the end of your life, the cycle remains. It's actually quite beautiful, and that's one of the things that I think you respect your elders for a reason. Experience is an incredible teacher. These people have lived a lot of life. They've learned a lot about life, and as a result of that, they deserve our respect. Last thing I wanted to touch on today's episode is goals, setting goals, thinking about your goals, thinking about your life and your plan, and more long-term strategy. As humans, we're naturally, I think, fairly short-sighted. Unless you put a conscious effort into making those long-term plans, people are like, hey, I got this job right now, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. We're just going to keep kind of rocking with this until something changes. But what I would encourage you to do, and what I've thought about previously that has been super helpful for me, just as far as just macro, big picture, what am I doing? What is this for? Why am I working? Why am I making money? What do I want to do? What makes me happy? At the end of the day, my question to you is, at the end of the day, if you were to say, oh, this would be my ideal end state, if I had a genie who could grant me wishes and they could grant those wishes, these are the wishes I'd ask for. This is the kind of life that I'd want. Think about the life of your dreams. If it was picture perfect, what would it look like? And work backwards from there. Because once you take the non-negotiables and you make them clear, everything else that isn't as important falls away, and you're able to prioritize and focus on the things that are truly important and the things that will truly make an impact in the ways that you want. And it's interesting because nobody's going to sit you down and really say, all right, I need you to write your top 3 to 5 goals. I want you to think about your 5 to 10 year plan. I want you to think about how you want to retire, what that looks like for you, what that setup would be, what you would do with your time if you were to stop working tomorrow. And there are some very basic questions that I feel like people don't simply have the answers to because we're not encouraged to ask these kinds of questions. And I think it's important because at the end of the day, life is what you make of it. And when you have a plan, you're able to navigate a whole lot more within your scope, within your values, within your dreams and your focus and what you want than anybody else's. Because when you don't have a goal, or you don't have a dream, or you don't have a plan, you're most likely operating on somebody else's plan. And life is too short for that, and there's a lot of people out there, but at the end of the day, one of my favorite quotes of all time was from a book, Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, and she said in this book, I swear by my life and my love of it I will never live my life for the sake of another man, nor ask another man to live for mine. If you truly want to make the biggest impact in this world, you have to look out for yourself, and you need to take care of yourself, because that allows you to be the best person you'll be to ultimately help the most people. But if you're operating on other people, and if you're trying to live your life for the sake of other people, not only are you going to resent them for that, but you're kind of almost actively working against your own self-interest. So, to summarize, to recap, appearance, as much as I hate to say how important it is very important. It is something to be considered, because that is how people view you in the world. And ultimately, those perceptions, especially those initial perceptions, those first impressions, mean a whole lot. Put yourself in the right spot. Take yourself seriously. You look good, you feel good, you play good, you play good, they pay good. Don't forget it. Time and aging and the way that things go, don't be in a rush. Slow down, enjoy the moments, have a conversation, laugh, have a drink, do whatever you want to do, but make sure that you try, to the best of your ability, try to hold on these moments, because they slip through your fingers quicker than you think, and by the end of the day, you're going to wish that you maybe sat in those moments a little bit longer, that you weren't going from one thing to the next, but you actually took that moment to really appreciate that time and that moment of your life. And lastly, goals. Think of your goals. Think of your dream life. What would that look like? How do you get there? And trust me, once you have the vision, your direction is significantly more important than your speed. How long it takes you to get there is almost irrelevant. The fact that you know where you're going is putting you in a good spot. I appreciate everybody for listening. I would love your comments in the comment section down below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, this has been episode 11 of the Wise Lemon Podcast with your host, Zade Eldomiaty. Thank you very much. Have a blessed one.